every time we change our schedule, our rhythm, that takes extra energy and focus for us to make the adjustment. And don't tell me that you have never changed the toilet paper roll in your house or somebody else's house. I know that somebody's come to my house and they just could not stand the toilet paper going in the wrong way. So most of us prefer under or over. Those are certainly signs of people that have a dreadful time with change, that they would have to change the toilet paper roll. Let's begin with some definitions. And I like to use the rubber band as an analogy for stress. So Hans Selye, the founder of the word stress, eustress, distress, he liked to think about the whole idea of stress as having a positive and a negative. So if you had a rubber band that, if you've got one in your desk right now, you can pull one out. When you think about a rubber band, you don't buy them to just stay limp and useless in your drawer. They're intended to have some stretch to them, some challenge. When we get up in the morning, we are glad that we had some time to be at rest, to be quiet, to have some peace. But if we stay there day after day, that's called depression. So healthy stress is just enough challenge, that new job or that new home or that new project of yours, just enough stress, which he called your stress, the healthy stress, so that you feel like you're on purpose, that you feel like you've got a challenge in your life. However, as the analogy goes, if you stretch too far, you put yourself at risk of snapping, cracking, or breaking. And unlike a rubber band that we throw in the garbage can, we human beings, if we snap, crack, or break, we can put our hand up and say, please help. And by the way, connection is a very, very good antidote to stress and all its connected maladies. So here's Hans Selye's book. He operated out of Montreal, Canada, which is pretty exciting. And he was a founding researcher of the whole concept of stress. And there's several books by him. He's long gone, but he did a good deed while he was here. So here is the idea of eustress. That's how you spell it. And eustress in his terms was just enough stress to give a sense of feeling that challenge. And stress it's what it is. And when it becomes too much, he coined the term distress to indicate, oh, this is just too much going on for me. Chronic stress is distress that escalates to either anxiety or depression. And anxiety is distress, including fear, worry, and sometimes panic attacks, that whole anxiety piece. And if we take a look at the nervous system that gets triggered often by our thoughts or a situation, it goes either into anxiety or depression. And depression is distress, including overwhelming sadness, hopelessness, and low energy. And trauma is distress that did not get resolved. Trauma is different than distress. If we, on a daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly basis, particularly in the moment basis, if we manage our distress well, we will not have trauma. Regrettably, many of us are living with trauma from our childhood, where we had no power and control, where we had no decision making. And but the good news is that trauma can be addressed. We have come a long way in the world of therapy in addressing traumatic events that happened to us in the past. And here's a definition of trauma for you: extreme distress from a life or well-being threat stored in the nervous system, the muscular memory, and the back of the old brain. Stored, not resolved. And a term that you may have heard is burnout. Burnout classically refers to the workplace, burning out at the workplace. And I have burned out twice as a caregiver. So just want you to know, if you're caregiving, you may experience that term burnout. And what does it mean? It means that you start to have negativity, cynicism, lack of energy and enthusiasm for the work you're doing, whether that's work in the home, caregiving, even in the community or in the workplace. It is distress that's gone to a type of distressed place. So I have a little quiz here for you, and away we go. Manisha will report. What percentage of Canadians are struggling with mental health? And typically that mental health starts with some kind of distressful event. What percentage? And this is a recent poll from the Angus Reid Institute. Put in the chat box your guess. And what's the vote sitting at, Manisha?
2-3, 2-3, 2-3.
2-3, 2-3. Yeah, very good. 36% of Canadians reported in January of 2022 that they felt fatigued, frustrated, and anxious. And much of that has to do with, back to what I was talking about before, about change requires us giving out energy to adjust. And during COVID, over and over again, we've been asked to shift and change and shift, which, if you get too much of it, is just fatiguing and frustrating and can create anxiousness. So what can we do about it? Well, the first, very basic, is to make sure that you've got the healthiest lifestyle that you can put in place. And you want to do a little check. I'm not a big fan of work-life balance because I say, well, doesn't life include work? I don't like separating them, but I do like to take a look at what could you improve during times of change, during times of distress, are the times where we need to up our self-care. And so just a quick little inventory for you is, how are you doing in the realm of looking after your physicality? Are you looking after your safety, wearing a seatbelt when you get in the car, driving within the speed limit, not using your cell phone when you're driving, no smoking, that's pretty basic. My daughter quit after years. I was so proud of her. And are you getting your rest, 7 to 9 hours of sleep? Are you eating your fruits and vegetables and really good protein? Are you eating breakfast? And are you drinking water? Oh my goodness, I could use some. Did you know that 90% of headaches are from dehydration? We need to be drinking as many liquids as possible. I'm not talking about alcohol and wine, which reminds me, Dr. Roizen, who did an inventory of what behaviors, lifestyle behaviors, minimize years you will stay alive and which ones will increase years you will stay alive. And he talked about drinking less than 1.5 ounces of liquor or 8 ounces of wine a day. He also talked about exercise, 20 minutes or more, 3 times a week. Owning a dog added 1 year of life. I want you to put in the chat box, why do you guess that owning a dog would add a year of life? What's your guess? Yes, it has to be walked, Ruth. Right on. Yes. And the other bonus of having a pet is you get your touching needs met. There is a reason that pets are taken into senior residence. Especially if you're a single person, you probably are not getting enough of your touching needs met. Lifting weights 3 times a week, he decided was important. Having an annual medical checkup, daily brushing and flossing your teeth, and you don't get away with not flossing, both, he said, flossing and brushing your teeth. In the emotional realm, Roizen talked about being aware of emotions in the body, identifying and sharing at least basic feelings of glad, sad, mad, and scared, the ability to both laugh and cry. We've done many of our males a disservice in our culture. by shaming them when they cry. Do a fun activity at least weekly. Use your sense of humor. And then the mental department, where we're going to take even a further look, is to continually learn, to use the right brain and the left brain, to use both creativity and logic, to manage finances and agreements, to be aware of negative self-talk and replace it. And we're going to look at that in a minute in detail. Be able to say yes and no. Remember the rubber band? You need to be able to say no so that it doesn't stretch too far. Too many yeses stretch that rubber band to the point of breaking and cracking. But you want to have enough yeses to give yourself a challenge. Develop an internal locus of control and do some kind of meditative activity that could be simply walking around the block. And social connection with others is a very healing and mental health process. We need to have conversations. We need to feel connected. We're hardwired for connection. So work overtime less than twice a month if you're in the workplace. Participate in workplace and family meetings. Yes, family meetings. No other group thinks they can go through the world day after day and not have a meeting to check what's working and what's not working. Delegate where possible. Manage fair labor distribution at work and home. Do not negatively gossip or grumble. Volunteer at least twice a month. And Royson referred to spiritual well-being as able to attain a sense of peace, have some personal sense of some meaning in your life. Wow. Let's move on to this whole piece around taking a look at how we can retrain our brain and thought patterns to not go into big panics with small and big changes. It is the amygdala that gets fired when we have some stinking thinking thoughts. And I'm just offering here some ways to attend to your thoughts so that you can better manage your stress. So the first is to develop an internal locus of control. And Ruth and I both may have the book by W. Mitchell on our shelves. I have his book called, I'm having a moment here. Do you remember the name of W. Mitchell's book, Ruth? I don't want to go and look at my shelf. And anyway, wait a minute, it's coming. It doesn't matter what happens to you. What matters is what you do about it. Ta-da! See, if you stress out when you can't remember something, when you start to stress out, and don't you dare, if you're over 65, say I'm having a senior moment. That is a piece of ageism. Okay? Most people have moments where their memory's not working. So develop an internal locus of control. As soon as I calmed down and relaxed, took a breath, I was able to remember his name. And indeed, it's not what happens to you, it's what you do about it that counts. And so he's been in a car crash, he's been a burn victim, he's had 2 major distress events, and could be traumatic events if it stayed locked in his nervous system. So developing an internal locus of control, what's that about? It's knowing that you are in charge of your thoughts. If nothing else, you are in charge of your thoughts. And indeed, stuff happens, life happens. What you can count on is for the sun to come up and the sun to go down, but other parts of the planet are becoming more and more unpredictable. AA has used this saying for years, Alcoholics Anonymous and all the 12-step programs. And it is a basic premise that can be helpful to moderating our thoughts. It has been helpful to me in a number of situations. Grant me the serenity to accept what I cannot change, the courage to change what I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And that takes some pondering sometimes. The second point I'm making about looking after your thought patterns is to avoid stepping into the drama triangle. And the drama triangle was created in the 1970s. It's an offshoot of transactional analysis that was developed by the psychologist, Dr. Eric Berne. And Michael Cartman was a student of his. And he developed this paradigm to show how we get in conflict in our own head and in conflict with other people. We step into playing one of these roles. And if you step into any three of these roles, you're increasing stress. And the victim role is really the role that the other two are wanting to avoid. They're wanting to avoid being the victim, but by clicking into attacking or blaming somebody else, in some ways they are a victim. And you'll notice that with arguments in your head and arguments with other people, often it's cyclic. It goes round and round and round, having these discussions in our head about who's to blame, can I rescue, can I fix the situation, and sometimes collapsing into victim. If you listen to two people arguing, usually they go round and round in this circle. And Ethel says to Jane, how dare you talk to me like that? And so Ethel is blaming Jane, and then Jane might say, oh, you're picking on me, and act like a victim. And then Ethel might just say, well, I've had a really rough day. And then Jane might turn into a rescuer and say, oh, what can I do for you? Can I bring a tea? So it goes round and round. On my website is a diagram. Most of us step into the drama triangle. I still do it some days. I'm making a confession here. I still do it some days. It's almost like we live in a victim culture. Just watch the newspaper headlines. They're either attacking, who's at fault, like we're really in a blame culture, who's wrong here. Very seldom do we see articles about solutions and problems. And I treasure those articles. This poster, many of my clients put up in front of their phone, so that when they're talking to somebody that's a challenge to them, or if they're getting themselves into a victim mindset in their own conversation in their head, poor me, ooh, rather than what's the truth? What's the truth? The truth is you're doing the best you can, right? That chatter in the head. Okay. Now here, I would like you to join in with me, and I want you to notice some of these lines that tend to be in your head when events aren't going well, when you're experiencing some stress. These come from EMDR and other stress management and trauma treatment programs. There's lists of classics. I am and I will, and I'm not and I should, and all of these. So let's play around with these for a few minutes. Let's start with the first one, I don't belong. And just give a stab at, what do you think would be a great reframe to take a breath, notice the self-chatter, and to say, okay, what's the truth here? What's the truth? Put it in the chat box, or you don't have that many people online, unmute yourself and share if you'd prefer to do that instead of the chat box. What is your suggestion to reframe I don't belong? I have value to add to the group. That's a great one, Ruth. And sometimes the group isn't a good fit for me. So, that's another way to think about it. This is not a good fit for me, and I'm okay the way I am. Thanks, Ruth. What about the next one? I'm a disappointment. This often indicates some childhood trauma of parental behavior. By the way, I'm not blaming parents. Parents did the best they could, but oftentimes they were living with trauma and never had it attended to. Their self-talk in their head often is generational. I have success in many fields. Yes, you do, Arlene. I know, Arlene. I didn't realize you're online. Yes, Arlene is a well-known Toastmaster. Very good. Good job. Yeah. I'm doing my best, and I don't own their expectations. Yes, very good. Love the sharing. Next one, I'm weak. Give me some good ones for I am weak. Typically, there are no weak people and strong people. I want you to notice the use of I am. I am is a very, very sacred statement. On all religious followings, there is a place for I am. Actually, there's some churches that have I am written on. I am the way, I am the light. I am needs to be very discerning how you end it. And it isn't feeling weak is one thing. There are some days I feel weak. So oftentimes if you have the habit of saying I am, replace it with I think, I feel, I believe. There's other replacements that can come and go and aren't as permanent as I am. So I went to a workshop years ago and we were asked, who are you? And we were to answer with the I am. And at the end of the weekend, I ended up stating, I am an individualized expression of spiritual energy in woman form. And that can be changed now in 2022. And I call myself Patricia. So just notice the I ams here. Now, for a long time, I had the I am stupid. That came from my father. He said, you are stupid. That turned into I am stupid. It was like I had a sign right on my forehead that said, I am stupid. Well, I'm not a stupid. I am not a stupid. I have made some stupid errors sometimes, but so have most people. So again, I am stupid. I say I have an intelligence. I have a creative and caring intelligence. If you want to learn more about intelligences, take a look at Howard Gardner's 8 intelligences. They range all the way from math to science to nature to creativity to music. And it's a wonderful affirmation for me when I discovered his 8 different intelligences. I should know better. I should know better. You know, you did the best you could. And let's just speed this up a little bit. I can't stand it. Careful what you're saying, right? We don't want you burning out. You can. Another line that I've loved for years is from my friend Alvin Law, who has no arms. And for years he had a keynote called No Such Word as Can't, because at the end of his keynote, he used to play the piano with his toes and play the drums with his toes. And so much of what we say, we can't, I see a typo there, please. Send me some vibes and say it's okay to make mistakes, Patricia. It's okay to make mistakes. I can't stand it. Is not a good neuron connection to make. You have done hard things before. You will do hard things again. That's part of life. Life does not come all with sugarcoating. We need some porridge at the beginning of the day. I'm powerless. Yes, you were as a child. And there are some situations, as the Serenity Prayer says, that you don't have any control, but you still have the power to decide how you're going to approach any situation. You have choices. And even if that choice is whether you decide to fight or accept or let go. Okay. I can't trust anyone. Really notice this particular belief system. It's often, again, rooted in a childhood where you did not necessarily get what you needed. And again, find people you can trust for a certain behavior. So I had a friend, Alice, and she consistently came to the meetings late. I could trust her to come late. Trust people's behavior. There's a wonderful line by Maya Angelou that says people tell you who they are. So you can trust people from their consistent behavior. I never get it right, and I always get it wrong. Be careful about never and always. There's seldom a never and an always. Sometimes in marriage counseling, I have a woman say, he never tells me he loves me. And I said, well, did he tell you when you said your wedding vows? And she'll say yes. And I said, well, maybe he hasn't changed his mind. Like he'll let you know when he changed his mind. There's very little never and always. Be careful about it. It negates your contributions and others. And I feel upset. Get in the habit of being more specific. Brene Brown's got a series right now that's on, I believe it's on PBS, all about emotions. And she talks about the mental health improvement, enhancement of being very specific about how you feel. Whether that's sad, glad, happy, elated, distraught. Stretch your feeling vocabulary. All upset means is you're having a feeling that you really don't want. When I say I feel hurt, it's very different than when I say I feel sad. Or if I say I feel devastated, that's very different than when I would say I'm disappointed or I'm frustrated. So to do check that you can expand your feeling vocabulary. And last but not least, I want to explore this phrase that I hear too many people using, which gives away their power and creates internal stress. You make me. You make me angry. You make me disappointed. You make me furious. You make me even happy. No, you're having a response. I want you to, when people tell you who they are, believe them the first time. Yes, thank you. That's from Maya Angelou. Thank you, Clark. I'm going to read that slowly. When people tell you who they are, let's go back to the chat box. When people tell you who they are, believe them the first time. Thank you. I want you to put your one hand on your heart, please. And the other hand up like this, like you're going to do a Girl Guide or Boy Scout little vow, and just repeat after me. I swear.
I swear.
From now on.
From now on.
I will.
I will.
Take responsibility.
Take responsibility.
For making me.
For making me.
Oh, very good. I make me and you make you. And by the way, Diane and Ruth and everybody online, you've done a good job of making you. So get away from other people, make other people. You do not have the power, really, to make other people. It's an interesting phrase to begin with. All right. Now, let's do something about the body. So what happens is we have these thoughts, and then they trigger the amygdala to say that we're emotionally not safe. We're in emotional danger. Help, 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 help. So our body then has all of these responses. I spent years being ill, irritated bowel syndrome attacks, cardiac arrhythmia attacks, rashes, strep throats, flus, and lots of headaches. And I'm healthier in my 70s than I was in my 30s. In my 30s, I started to seek help for my mental wellness. All right. So if we can catch, sometimes we can't catch the thoughts, but we can catch the response in our bodies. And sometimes we're not taking good self-care of the basic lifestyle pieces around eating well, sleeping well, etc. Okay. So what are the signals? On the session guide, I have listed some signals that our body tells us that we are experiencing some distress beyond just regular daily challenging stress. So I named some of mine. They were significant, but you know what? Eventually I learned to pay attention to eye twitching. Eye twitching for me was like the whisper. It whispered, Patricia, you're not taking care of yourself. Was that little whisper. The others were like a 2x4 over me and saying, darn it all, it's time you woke up that you are not doing good self-care for yourself and not managing the stress and challenges in your life. So this alarm goes off, and it's up to us to notice it. Now, before we take a look at this little list, I want you to put in the chat box your signal. What's your signal? And did you know that 17% of Canadians grind their teeth? I've got a client, she's new, delightful. And she came the second time for a session and she said, Patricia, I'm not grinding my teeth anymore. I'm waking up in the morning and my jaw's not hurting. If anybody wants to know the trick I told her, it doesn't take very long. Just indicate that you'd be interested in that in the chat box. It could be for yourself or it could be a loved one. Yeah. So there's over 100 indicators that our body is yelling you're under stress. Dr. Balpawa in Vancouver has said that 75% of what we take to the doctor, we create by not taking good care of our stress. Oh, you clench your chin. Okay, here's the trick. It's become an unconscious response to the stress. Okay, it's just unconsciously you often go to bed at night and the thought patterns, etc., are being activated. This is a simple fix that has helped a lot of people. I want you to set your phone or whatever you have that can set off a little alarm at least 3 times a day, 3 times or 5 times a day for about a week. This client of mine managed to have the jaw clenching stop when she's sleeping after a week of practicing deliberately grinding her teeth and then taking a big breath and letting the jaw relax so that she's telling the jaw, it's like talking to a body part, I'm in charge here. I'm in charge. We'll decide when we clench. Okay, what are some other body signals that other people have that they're willing to share? Yes, yeah, you grind your, thank you for sharing that you grind your teeth while you sleep. That's usually the unconscious is doing that. Oh, shoulders creep up to your ears. Yes, we carry a lot of responsibility across our shoulders. People often, when they have a huge amount of responsibility, start to feel tension across the shoulders and the back. That's very, very common. And yes, somebody else has the eye twitching, same as me. So when you've got that eye twitching, when you notice it in the morning or whatever you notice it, just ask yourself, what can I do to say to my body, thank you for that signal, and I will take care of you. The very famous book, under Free Your Body in the session guide, the book is called The Body Keeps a Score by Bessel van der Kolk. And Bessel van der Kolk is a leader, a huge leader in the trauma healing movement. And this book really goes into detail about when we don't manage our distress well, that the body ends up keeping the score, which it did for years with me. I can remember going on a holiday and just writhing with irritated bowel syndrome. I spent most of my holiday in the bathroom, actually. And it was because my unconscious said, oh, you've got some time now to notice what your body's experiencing. And oh my goodness, writhing in pain. So what do we do about this? Well, I've given you one little tip with the teeth grinding. It doesn't really matter what it is, the symptom. I want you to notice it. Get really, really good at noticing it. And then ground yourself. Feel your feet on the floor. Maybe even do a body scan. That's a body scan. You notice any sensation, the top of your head, on your forehead, and you go all through your body, behind your eyes, noticing any sensation around the ears, noticing your shoulders, maybe even squeezing your shoulders up to your ears, take in a breath and letting them go. Again, retraining and saying, I'm ready to take care of my body. And also in alignment with this is, of course, taking care of your thought patterns so that you're not triggering that emotional danger signal. Take a few breaths and breathe your breath right down to your toes. So Porges, Dr. Stephen Porges of the polyvagal theory, has discovered in his research that if you do the out breath longer, that there's a vagal nerve that gets calmed down. So when you're doing some breathing, make sure that you breathe out longer than you breathe in. There are box breathing where you breathe in for a count of 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, and repeat. However, I now recommend that people breathe in, breathe in 3 to 4, hold for 5, and breathe out for 7. Doesn't really matter the formula. You know, there's nostril breathing, there's all kinds of different breathing techniques. I'm convinced that the out breath is the important piece there. So make sure that you're doing that out breath. And if you are able to catch that triggering thought, and somebody wrote about journaling in the chat box, it's a good practice if you want to start catching your thoughts, is for you first thing in the morning, if you're a morning lark, or at night before you go to sleep, if you are a night owl like I am, to write down some of the key thoughts that you've had today. It's one of the best ways to monitor your thoughts is to journal. Okay? And of course, for those of you that are considering therapy, that is basically what we start with, is some of the thoughts that come up. We pay attention to what's going on in the body, body tracking, and we blend both of them. And so then we're dealing with both, helping with distress as well as with trauma, if there is any trauma that needs to be resolved. And looking after the body doesn't take any longer than about 30 seconds. I notice, I ground, feel my feet on the floor. I take in a big breath, make sure that I breathe out longer, and I notice the thought that triggered it. And if I can add the next piece of what's the truth? The truth is I'm doing the best I can. That's a usual formula that's pretty good to use. All right, last little point we're going to play with is if you add some lightening up in your life, it will sort of balance out the stress of simply being alive. Being alive is stressful. It just is. That's the way it is. However, if we come from an internal locus of control, we can decide that we can lighten up some of our moments, some of our days. I'll just show you a couple little ideas. So this is classic. This has been researched over and over and over again, that developing an attitude of gratitude. Now, keeping a gratitude journal, you can blend keeping track of your feelings, your body responses, and your thoughts. But I should correct that. Thoughts, body sensations, which equal emotions. That's how it works. You can keep a journal of those 3: thoughts, body sensations, emotions, plus gratitude. Or you can have a separate journal if you like. It's up to you. Sometimes I've scribbled in mine, sometimes I've done drawings, sometimes I do copy. I cut out pictures and paste them in my journal. I've got dozens of journals over the years. So there's some research about being grateful, and I like being playful with all of these concepts. So there's my grateful. Let me know if you'd like yours. like that, Melanie. All right, here's the research. So these researchers took their participants and had them for 10 weeks write 3 to 5 reasons that they were grateful that day. And what was the outcome after 10 weeks? They were more optimistic, felt better, and fewer visits to the doctor. I like that. Now, optimism is aligned with having more friends, taking more risks, being more successful, and healthier as well. Optimistic thoughts. View your hang-ups as personal jokes. Just see if you can make a bit of a joke of some of your hang-ups, you know? Like if you tend to be a control freak, you can start to loosen the thought about everything has to be in order. You know, you can start telling, and it's self-deprecation. You could tell your friends, you know, all my undies are color coordinated, for example. Embarrassing moments are stressful, but they're not if you make fun of them, right? I was presenting in front of over 600 people at a TOPS meeting. It was people who were TOPS, take off pounds sensibly. And I went to the washroom just before I was on stage. And I kept telling them about a fat-sucking garment that I was wearing, that if they didn't want to lose weight, that they could at least start with wearing a fat-sucking garment to have them look as slim as me. And I kept kind of turning this way and that way so that they could see how sloughed I was. Well, later, a videographer sent me video footage. And guess what? When I went to the washroom, I forgot to put the clasps on that fat-sucking garment, and it went up to my waist, and it pushed my stomach out so it looked like it had a football in there. And not one person at TOPS said anything to me about having this football-sized growth sticking out from my stomach. Anyway, I started deleting these videotapes and some of the photos that were sent to me. And my husband very sweetly said, "Oh, with your resilience, Patricia, and your way to manage stress, I would think you would make up a fun story about that," which I did. In the end, hang in there and see if you can make some fun of any of your hang-ups. And last but not least, spend time with children and or Disney. You know, I'm so sad that I'm hearing that many children are experiencing distress right now and during the time of COVID. It does not seem natural. I know that there's still enough children around that are free spirits, that have parents that are allowing them to bring out the best in themselves. And time playing is so important. So do add that to your repertoire. And I do have a little bonus to offer you. And that is, if you'd like a 45-minute session, if I could be helpful, it's totally complimentary to see if we can name some thoughts that are tripping you up and maybe what you could do about some triggering of your body responses. I'm very open to that. You just email me. And I'd be glad to send you the ebook format of Frantic Free. It's my one little Canadian bestseller, it's a mini book, and I'd be glad to send you the ebook version of that. 167 ways to calm down and lighten up. And on that note, enjoy the stress that's a challenge for you, your stress, and may you better manage your distress.